Dan first. Yeah. And then welcome to Rotary. Crash. Nice to see everyone. And I think Mike Bird, he on yet?
Yep, I'm ready.
There you go. I see him. I couldn't find you. Is going to lead us in the pledge today.
Okay. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And Patty Hansen has an inspiration from Hawaii. Oh, you have to unmute first.
Okay, now can you hear me? Okay. Okay, I'm going to read a poem called We're All Messy, We're All Struggling by Amy Weatherly. We are all flying high in some ways, and we're all falling flat on our faces in others. Nobody has it figured out. It's our job to cheer each other on, lift each other up, and push each other to keep giving our best. It matters who we surround ourselves with. We need to be better to each other. We're all we have.
Wonderful, thank you. Do we have any visiting Rotarians before we introduce guests? Looking through my list here. I don't see anyone. It looks like it's mostly us folks, but I do want to introduce Mr. Dan. Is it Mata or Mata? I didn't clarify that.
It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. Got it. I want to welcome Dan. He is our newest member to the club. Janie Jewell brought him in, I believe. And so we're very, very happy to have him here as a new member of our club. And he is also going to be our speaker today. Do you want to introduce yourself a little bit? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, sure. So I'm Dan Mata, and originally from Houston, Texas, born and raised there. And then I joined the Marine Corps out of Houston, and then spent 8 years in the Marines, stationed out of Camp Pendleton, California. And after I got out of the Marine Corps, I moved up here to Southern Oregon, and became a student, graduated in my criminal justice degree, and then learned about CASA and joined the family in CASA. So I've been with CASA for 7 years now. So I've been in the Valley since 2009.
Wonderful. Well, we're happy to have you and very excited to have you as part of our club. So welcome.
Thank you.
All right. I know we've got some announcements. I think Jody, you might have an announcement to make about the fair this weekend.
Yeah, so thank you. I do appreciate those of you that have signed up also to help with the fair gates. We do still have some slots available if anybody has any time tomorrow evening or Saturday. There's some that's one spot at 10 in the morning. And then there other things are mostly evening and that type of deal. Like we said, if we aren't able to get them fully manned the way they want, we'll just have to have them shut down the gates, which some of those, are kind of quiet gates anyway, the 4-H gate and the horse gate. So if you've signed up for those, you might want to bring a book. We're just kind of there watching to make sure that people aren't, bringing things in that they shouldn't be bringing in. We ask them not to bring in dogs. We ask them not to ride bicycles or skateboards and those types of things into the fair. If they give you problems, we just turn them over to concierge. We do nothing more than just make the suggestions, and then concierge are the ones that are getting paid the money, big bucks to boot people, which that was the scoop. The fair actually last night, I worked for the 4 to 10 shift, and there was a lot more people there than I've seen at the opening day of fair for a long time. It's free, of course, to get in all week long, which is something people are still trying to get used to. So it's free all week long. You just end up paying more for the specific items. If you wanted to go watch the concert, you paid to watch the concert. If you want to go to the roping, today you pay to get into the arena. you pick and choose what you want to do. And it really makes it easier for families to be able to go there and enjoy stuff. They can do a whole bunch of things for free, look at a whole bunch of things for free, see a bunch of things, or if they want to do something special, then they just pay for it. So the vendors, I think, were doing fabulous. The food vendors were consistently huge lines throughout the thing. So anyhow, for Rotary, we do them in 3-hour shifts, unlike the posse where we do 6-hour shifts. I said there's no way in blankety blank we'd get Rotarians to have to be there for 6 hours. I wouldn't ask that. But we would turn around and pay you for working there the $12 per hour that we get paid, so that it's money that goes to the club, for on that behalf. So I do want to thank those of you that have helped. And just a quickie on a different thing, because Gina and Maria and I had been talking about it a little bit, getting ready for the backpack program. So looking forward and ahead to December. So she already told me what the budget is. I've started looking at the backpacks. We'll want to ultimately make a decision. Do we want to continue with the 216 kids, which is based off of the number of items per case, or do we want to feel like we can maybe bump it up to 240 kids, which would be the next bundle of case? So something to be thinking about, but based on the budget and stuff, it would be things that we would need to decide, how much are Rotarians going to donate, or is there items that they want to donate to be able to help going toward that. I definitely don't want to get the same socks last year as I got last year. Those were horrible. They were kind of gray white. They looked like they'd been used already. I was not pleased with that company. So we'll look for those types of things. But anyway, it's on its way. It's already mid-August, and December will be here before we know it. So thank you, guys.
Right. Thank you, Jody. I appreciate that. Yeah, talk about how fast we're going. Reminder to everybody that we're going to start meeting in person again starting in September. So thank you if you have filled out the survey already. We're trying to get an idea of how many people might plan to attend, either mostly in person or sometimes in person when available, or if you prefer to continue meeting via Zoom for any number of reasons, just so we can kind of have a head count. So if you haven't had a chance to take that survey yet, it was the link was included in the email that went out this morning. So if you have a moment to get that done, we'd appreciate that. Val, do you have an update for us from the city?
I do. I'll keep it short and sweet. This last week on Monday, we were talking. Main thing is we spent a lot of time coming to a conclusion as to what we could put in the ballot measure for the seasonal sales tax as a city. And we chose to say that we would take $1 off per thousand of the property tax, so lower people's property tax by $1 per thousand if the sales tax were to pass. So that will be going on the ballot. And the count, and we will look over, I think, the explanatory statement here shortly. So things are getting ready to go on for the November ballot, believe it or not, crazy. And there will be some sort of an education campaign in terms of taxation coming as September, October, November come around. Then we did last week also vote to take some of our ARPA funding, for which we had planned on land banking for affordable housing, and Jackson County Housing Authority, which has built several affordable housing projects in Grants Pass, and Josephine County Housing Council are partnering, and they were given the authority to go off and look for some land that would work for affordable housing to use some of those ARPA funds. So that's that. We gave that direction last Monday, and then we will on September 12th be having a housing roundtable discussion, bringing in some builders and bankers to try to kind of talk about what can we do to help incentivize just building in general in our community, to help solve the housing crunch. So that's kind of what's going on. I will mention also the city of Grants Pass has a booth at the fair. I worked there last night, and it's really a fun booth. If you haven't been there, it's a Jeopardy game, or you sit down and learn it's a multiple choice Jeopardy points. You earn points and everybody gets a prize. So it's just a great place to come in and sit down. It's by the swamp cooler in the commercial place, and you can sit down and just rest, take your in some chairs and take a test. It's really fun to watch groups of people take it to do it together and talk about it. Families, it's a great place for families to have some great discussions about city and lots of information about it. So I suggest you stop by. It's open all as long as the fair is open. So I will be there again on Sunday, which is why I'm not volunteering Rotary, because I'm out there as it is as for the city. So there you go.
All
And I
right.
don't know if there's any questions, but I'll be happy to answer any.
Yeah, are there any questions for Val? All right,
Okay.
well, thank you very much. Wynn is leading an employee forum at Asante, so he's not available today for a healthcare update. We'll hear back from him hopefully next week. Does anybody else have an announcement? All right, well then we can get right into our program today. Dan already introduced a little bit about himself, and we're excited because he's here today to talk to us about CASA, which I know many of us are familiar with, but it's always nice to hear a little bit more about the program and what's happening in Josephine County, and also how we can all get involved. So I will turn it over to Dan.
All right, thank you for having me today. So there's been some changes here in Josephine County. I came originally from Jackson County CASA. So I'm the new program manager here, and Heather is the program director. Heather's been here for 8 years, and I've been with the program for 7 years total, as I mentioned. So I just came from Jackson County. So there's some changes going on. And so we're just trying to get back into the groove here and get these kids served with some CASAs. And part of my role is a little bit of outreach and getting some volunteers to come in and advocate for these kids. So currently we have about 76 kids who are waiting to be served by CASAs. And so that's why we're consistently always recruiting. So if you know of anybody or, is interested in CASA, send them our way. And I can put my email in the chat box. Let's see if I can find the chat box. There it is. There's my email there, so you could always send them my way. They can talk to me, and I can get them in here and get them oriented and see if it's a good fit for them. So, like I mentioned, we just our goal is to have a CASA for every foster child in Josephine County by the end of the year 2025. And part of that goal is that we're gonna need, in reality, we'll need more staff to adequately sustainable fund, that position to help advocate for those kids. So our goal also is to get donations and things from the community. Right now we do get some fundings from grants and things like that. And so, we would need more staff to help supervise those volunteers. But so I'm going to just kind of give a presentation. It's a PowerPoint presentation. Hopefully I don't put anybody to sleep. And if you have any questions throughout through the presentation, please stop and ask questions. And we can kind of just learn a little bit about CASA. Any questions so far? All right, let me see if I can share my screen. All right, everyone can see my screen okay?
Yeah.
All right, so this is CASA 101. So one of our CASA says, this is the toughest volunteer job you'll ever love. And it's a true statement. So, what we mean by the toughest job is that, we're here in our hearts to advocate for these kids. And sometimes the outcome isn't really always what we hope to be, but, we're shooting for the best interest of these children. And that's what we are guided by, as our best interest principle. And sometimes, it doesn't always go that way, but, we have to kind of be here to help coach those volunteers and tell them like why certain things happen certain ways. So, so right now in our program staff here in Josephine County, we are a 501c3 nonprofit under the umbrella of Jackson County. So we are Josephine and Jackson County CASA. So our director is actually out of Jackson County. Her name is Jennifer. She is in the Metro office. And then we have our program director, Heather, and then myself. And then we just hired a new case supervisor who will be starting with us on Monday. Yay. We've been needing the help. So she'll be starting on Monday to help us help these volunteers. So CASA began in 1977 by a retired judge, Judge Sukkot, I believe that's his name, in Washington. And a lot of times everyone was focusing on the parents and no one was really focusing on the child. And so this judge said, hey, like, what can we do to focus on the kids? And so they started this program called CASA, Court Appointed Special Advocates for Kids. He started it out of his garage. And then so the program has built since then, and it's now a nationwide program. There's currently about 955 CASA programs throughout the country. And so some of the programs in each state are state mandated to exist, and they do our mandate for CASA to be appointed to every single child that comes into DHS child welfare care. So as I mentioned, we are a 501c3 nonprofit. In 2012, we became the nonprofit under Jackson County's umbrella. So who are CASAs? CASAs are basically the volunteers from the community. They're not, experts who come in with criminal degrees or, psychology degrees or anything. They're just solely volunteers from the community who offer hope for these abused and neglected children who come into DHS child welfare. So it has to be a DHS child welfare case for CASA to be involved. It can't be any kind of custodial case, a divorce case or anything like that. We don't get involved with that. It's all just abused and neglected children who get involved with child welfare. We are the voice for the children in court. So we are appointed by the judge. So we're essentially the eyes and ears for the judge. We go out to the home. We're seeing where the kid's at. We're seeing if they're thriving or not, and we're reporting back to the judge on what we see and what's going on with these kids. We're a legal party to the case, and so what that means is that we are legally appointed to the case, and so we're privy to all and any information about the children, and so we're a party just as well as like the parents would be, attorneys would be, and DHS would be. So we have legal access to the child. We go out to the schools, we go out to the medical professionals, we obtain records, and because we're court appointed, we are allowed to have that type of information. And as I mentioned, we look out for the best interest of the child, and I'll talk a little bit about what that means. So CASAs are anyone who is 21 years of age or older. They have to reside in Josephine County to be a Josephine County CASA. You can be from any state or country, it doesn't matter. There's no requirements. There's no educational requirements. There's no, we got CASAs who come from all different types of backgrounds. We have different, CASAs who come from different communities, LGBTQIA2S+ community, different kind of religious backgrounds, just anyone who's willing to be open and interested in, advocating for these kids, and can put aside a lot of their own biases or whatever the choices they decide to be in there. We're all in here for the best interest of the children. We do have some, we call now, you'll hear the term, rather than foster care or foster parents, we'll say resource care or resource parents. So we do have resource parents who are currently CASAs as well. They just can't be the CASA for the kids who's in their home. So this is kind of what CASAs do. CASAs, throughout the life of a case, they get involved, they visit the child once a month. That's the national CASA policy. We do require the CASA to see the child once a month. And, we do make some exceptions if you're a traveler or whatever, you can see the kid via Zoom or Skype, or there's so many, variations of ways that you can see the kids. And so as long as you're getting to see the kids and seeing how they're doing, and if they're thriving in the home that they are, that's great. We write reports to the judge, we go to court hearings, we go to meetings, we communicate with all the other parties, and we kind of just get in there and doing all this stuff for the kids, going to the schools. And the idea is that we're basically monitoring these cases and keeping track of the progress of the parents and seeing how they're doing and if it's, you know, a safe enough place for these kids to be returned to. So that's kind of, you know, what you do throughout the case. And, you know, if it's not in the best interest of the kid to return home, then that's what we're talking to the judge about. About 400 children become involved in child welfare system in Josephine County each year. And some of those main reasons are substance abuse and neglect. We're seeing a really high rise of fentanyl. You guys may have heard of it, but we're seeing a high rise of that. You know, and so there's a big issue with that. And sometimes the substance abuse can be anything that's to the extreme that's going to, you know, put the child at risk of harm or unsafe. And so that can be, you know, alcohol or, you know, marijuana use or anything that's putting the child at risk. We're seeing a lot of health, mental health also coming into play, both parents and children as well. And so we're seeing all that. So another reason why we have CASA is that, you know, the child welfare system and the court system, they cannot monitor each child and their needs. So a lot of these times that these kids come into care, they only have so many certain caseworkers who are available to advocate for, or look out for these kids. And so some of these caseworkers get, you know, a big caseload of 25 cases. And so about 85% of the time they're getting you know, a chance to go see the kid, whereas CASA's, you're seeing the kid 100%, you know, each month. So they just, you know, can't keep up. They're having a high changeover. They're, you know, all this stuff. And so they don't have so many court-appointed attorneys too. And so these attorneys are getting assigned a vast amount of cases, and, you know, they're getting, you know, probably 100 cases, and they just don't have the time to go see the kid. Whereas CASA, again, is seeing a child 100% out of the time each month. So, and that CASA is that one stable person in their life. So a lot of times these kids sometimes move. They move placements. They go to different foster homes or resource homes. And they go, you know, from one caseworker to another caseworker because of the changeover. Whereas the CASA stays with the kid, no matter what. That same CASA stays with that kid, whichever foster home they're going to, you know, whichever DHS caseworker they're going to change to. They have that same one constant, stable person in their life, and that's the CASA. So studies show that kids, you know, with a CASA versus without a CASA are 99% less likely to experience re-abuse. And what that means is that basically these kids come into care for whatever the reason might be, say substance abuse in the home or whatever. If there's a CASA on the case, they're likely not going to experience that type of abuse or neglect again with a parent or whatever. So that the CASA is going to make sure that that child is in the safe place, so they're not experiencing, you know, that type of neglect or abuse again. And so they're 99% less likely to experience that again. They're about 50% less likely to languish into foster care or community resource care. So they're not just going to sit around in foster care and you know, the CASAs might advocate for the kids to go with relatives or, you know, go back home, whatever the case may be. So they're, you know, less likely to languish in that type of care wherever they may be. A lot of times the kid's gonna get, you know, sometimes have an opportunity to achieve greater academic success because the CASA is there to advocate for them to be on an IEP, an individual education plan, whatever the case may be. These CASAs are always making sure that these kids are getting the necessary services that they might need in you know, in their life. So CASA appointments, basically anyone that knows that there's a DHS case can ask for a CASA to be appointed to a case. So relatives, so a lot of times the judges and attorneys are always asking for a CASA to be appointed to a case, and we do our best to appoint a CASA. As again, I mentioned, we have 76 kids who are waiting, and we just don't have enough CASAs. So we do our best to kind of triage those cases and get them a CASA as soon as we can. National CASA policy says that one CASA can only carry up to 3 cases, and so we don't want to overburden our volunteers and assign them with more than 1 case or 2 cases at a time. And so we're doing our best to get those kids CASAs. So when you're a CASA, you're doing a lot of investigation and communication. You're receiving a lot of information from different parties. You're going to talk to people who are non-legal parties. You can't necessarily share information with parties because of confidentiality reasons, but we can obtain information from so many different people and put those in our court reports and report back to the judge of what's going on. We're only going to gather that whatever is necessary and pertinent to the case and report that back to the judge. And then, you know, we're always looking for people who, you know, can be ethical, trustworthy, and the overall for me is I always preach this is maintain objectivity. And so focusing on the child, focusing on their needs and whatever is in the best outcome for them. And we're always doing this from a strength-based approach instead of a negative perspective. And so when we're advocating for these families and kids, is that, you know, we may sometimes have parents who do have substance abuse issues and stuff, but they're working on it. You know, they're going to treatment and they're doing what they need to do. And they may have been sober for, you know, 2 weeks or 3 weeks and then, you know, relapse or whatever. But we're going to, you know, focusing on the positives. We're going to say these parents were sober for 3 weeks and they're doing their best. And so we're going to encourage them to, you know, be sober for another 60 days or something. So we're always focusing on the strengths of these parents and what they're doing. And that's what the courts also like to see. And they do see, you know, those things that happen. They may have relapse or whatever, but we're not, you know, necessarily going to advocate for the kids to go home at that time if the parents continue to relapse or whatever the case may be. But we are going to focus on the positives on what they're doing. So I talked, you know, a couple of times about our best interest. So our best interest principle, basically what this whole thing says is that we want to find a safe permanent home as quickly as possible for these kids. And what we're doing is, in doing that, we're gathering information about the kids and we're going to make fact-based recommendations to the court about what's going on. You know, our best interest typically prioritizes returning the kid to the parent and or looking for a safe family member because studies show that kids are going to do better off with family versus strangers, and they don't know who they're with. But ultimately, our best interest principle is that, you know, we want to keep these kids safe and we want to get them permanency. And so these parents, they have a timeline. So from the time that the kid comes into care, when, you know, DHS first comes into their lives and brings it to the court's attention, the parents have 12 to 14 months to get their things and acts back together, you know, so to speak, to be a safe parent. And so we're monitoring that and we're saying, okay, your 12 or 14 months has come along. Where are you in your life, or where are you in your case? And are we gonna, you know, be able to return the kid back home, or are we gonna talk about maybe moving to a concurrent plan? So concurrent plan can be like a guardianship or adoption, whatever, you know, the courts feel was safe for the children, and whatever DHS feels was safe for the children is what we're advocating for. Any questions so far? I know I'm kind of blasting through this. All right, so as I mentioned, we have CASAs from all walks of life. We have CASAs who are counselors, who are psychiatrists, who are lawyers, doctors, or whatever. But when you come in your CASA role, we're not acting as those professionals. What we're doing is we're getting these kids to an actual professional, even though you may be in that professional, you know, you might be a doctor, but you can't evaluate that kid because of, you know, liability reasons. And so we're going to get those referrals to DHS and make sure that the kids are getting the needs met by other professionals. In the CASA role, we're here just as advocates. And so you're going to act as an advocate for the kid. We don't make any kind of placement arrangements. We don't transport the children due to liability reasons. We don't do any of that. We're just going into the home. We don't bring the children into our home. We're just going into their home and seeing how they're doing in their homes. We always ask CASA to not provide gifts to the family or the children. We do get variation of donations from the community. And I mean, when I say we get donations from the community, it's a lot of donations from the community. That's part of the reason why I continue to stay here with CASA, is because I see what the community does for the kids and all the gifts that they provide. And I see that, and it just warms my heart to see, the things that they provide these kids: clothing, toys, gift cards, laptops, beds, all the kind of things. And so it's awesome to see. And so we ask CASA to not do that, because we're a nonprofit and we can't necessarily reimburse you if you decide to, provide a gift for a child or family. When you're a CASA, you get a lot of support from the staff, and we always understand that our CASAs are volunteers and they have a life and they like to go on vacations. They have doctor's appointments. We understand that, and so we're not going to ask you to stop your life or stop doing what you're doing, for this case. And so we're going to be here to provide for you and help, fill in for those things that you might not be able to make a court hearing or a meeting. That's what we have our paid staff for, and we're going to fill in for you while you're gone. And we're going to be your voice for you while you're gone. And so we're going to say, this is what the CASA is asking for this child. And, and the judge sees that. And so that's what they kind of go by. And so we're also here to be your coach and your mentor and sounding board. As I mentioned earlier, some things might not go the way you think it should be going, and so you might be frustrated. So come by the office and voice whatever you want in the office. Sometimes just don't put it in writing, because it can be subpoenaed to the court. So so just come by and voice it here with us. We do ongoing educational opportunities throughout the year. We always send out trainings at least once every 2 weeks. It could be, suicide prevention. It could be fentanyl awareness, or it can be substance abuse awareness or mental health awareness. We do always send out those educational opportunities to our CASAs. We do have what's called the co-CASA team up. So basically, if you're a CASA and your spouse or a friend or somebody that's interested in being a CASA, you can both be legally appointed to the case and talk about it to each other, and then try to find out what's the best outcome for these kids, and that we're advocating for. We do have some CASAs who are mentors for teens. So this is the only time that you can transport a child, is if they're from the age of 13 to 21. So kids can be in the care all the way up to the age of 21. It's their choice after the age of 18 if they decide to stay in care. There are some benefits for them to stay in care after the age of 18. And so we call them our mighty CASAs. They're mighty, they're mentoring youth towards independence CASAs, and they're just basically acting as mentors for these kids. We're teaching them, independent living skills, financial proficiency skills, and teaching them about healthcare. They may not understand, insurance or, all that kind of stuff. And so we're here to help provide some guidance with them and help guide them along, to become young, adults. And and then we also have our family finding connections. What these ladies do, and I say ladies because I'm pretty much the only male in the whole organization, but the ladies, they go and they find family members from all over the world for these kids. And when they're just trying to get these kids connected with the family members so that, they feel like they're a part of something. And some of these family members may not want to be a placement resource for the kids, but they do want to have a connection, and they're writing letters, they're sending pictures. And so it just makes them feel, again, a part of something. And so that's just awesome that they do. I mean, it's incredible work that they do with finding these family members and how they find them. It's amazing. And they do a lot of family history. They get these kids their genealogy stuff, and and they showing them like where their family history came from and all kinds of things like that. So our budget, again, we're a nonprofit, so approximately 90% of our budget comes from grants and fundraising. We are a state mandated program. The state does only give us so much money for our program to exist, but it's not enough to keep us afloat. So we do a lot of our own fundraising events and our grant writing. And so we also get federal funding, Victims of Crime Act, Crime Victims Compensation Fund, that's CVC and VOCA, that's what those stand for. And so we do receive those funds right now, at least for the next 2 years or so. And so we're constantly always, you'll see us, begging and asking the community for donations for us. So when a person's interested in becoming a CASA, they'll do an application with us. They'll do an interview with myself here in Josephine County. We'll do a background check on you because we have to make sure that you are a safe person and you have no kind of DHS background history or criminal history or anything like that. And then we do a training. We do a 30-hour training each year. Once you complete the training, you get sworn in by a judge and you're officially a court-appointed advocate for the kids, and you get your first case and you work your case and you go for whatever is the best outcome for these kids. So again, if you guys know anybody or I should say colleagues, I don't think it should say psychologists. And so if you know of anybody who might be interested in volunteering, just send them my way. Again, there's my email in the chat box. And our best resource is, word of mouth. And, we only have so much funding to do, advertisement in newspaper or the radio, whatever. We don't always have enough funding for that. So if any of you guys have connections for that, that'd be awesome. But we, a lot of our times we are talking word of mouth, and that's how people learn about CASA. So any questions? I don't know how to stop sharing.
Looks like Jim Lefebvre has a question.
Hi, Dan. I want to thank you for this presentation to our Rotary Club today. Very interesting. I had heard of CASA, but I really did not have an idea or I did not comprehend exactly what CASA was doing before hearing you speak. I have a few questions. I'm going to place them all out and then answer or not as you can. First one is, how many people are CASA in Josephine County? You mentioned that you go through about 400 kids a year. You have 76 right now that do not have a CASA. So of the total, how many CASAs do you have in Josephine County? Then second of all, is a CASA responsible in certain instances to report to the sheriff or the police? For example, if a CASA sees that there's illegal something happening in the home, do they report directly to the police, or do they report to the court, or what do they do? Another question would be, have you seen any CASAs ever threatened by family? And if so, how were the CASAs protected? Final question, the ages of the children, what is your universe here? How many are in the nursery range, 0 to 3, or like 4 to 10, 10 to 13, 13 to 17, 18 to 21? Where is your breakdown in the people being served here? Thank you.
Yeah, a lot of great questions, Jim. So I'm going to start out with how many CASAs we have right now is 30. So we have about approximately 30 CASAs who are advocating for a total, if you can still see my screen here, 82 kids. These 30 CASAs are advocating for all 82 kids. And again, we still have another 76 who are waiting. Again, that's why we're consistently always recruiting to get, more CASAs to advocate for the rest of those kids. Second question was, who are the CASAs reporting to? So CASAs are mandatory. Once you become a CASA, you're a mandatory reporter. So if you ever see anything that's unsafe or whatever for the child, basically what we're doing is we're calling the hotline. There's a hotline that you're going to call, and you're going to report unsafe condition. Now, if it's a life-threatening or emergency type of situation, obviously you're going to call 911. Call law enforcement to come and intervene. But if it's something that's not like life-threatening, you see that could be a potential safety risk. We're not really quite sure, and so that's why we're just going to report to the hotline. So we're not necessarily answering directly to the sheriffs or whatever. Again, only if it's like a life-threatening type of situation. I believe your third question is, have CASAs been in any unsafe conditions in a home? And so in my lifetime of being with CASA, 7 years, Heather's been 8 years, we have not had an incident where the CASA felt unsafe or the family was threatening CASA in any certain way. And the biggest thing is when we see these cases that come into care, we're going to evaluate the reports that we see and determine if we're going to even appoint a CASA to that case. So, for example, we had in Jackson County, we had a case where the father was heavily involved in gangs, a very well-known nationwide gang, and the mother as well. And so we weren't going to put any CASA at risk and appoint a CASA to that child or children that were in that system, because the parents were threatening DHS. They were threatening lawyers. And so, it's our job to protect our CASAs, protect our community as well. And so we would never put a CASA at risk for any reason. And so and always in the beginning, for each case, that we assign a CASA to, obviously we're seeing if it's safe or unsafe. Always in the beginning, we always offer to go with the CASA as a staff member to the first visit or second visit with you, just so that you feel some sort of safety and comfortable around the family. And so that's just what we're going to do as a program, is we're going to protect you. And if you ever feel unsafe in any certain way, you'd always let us know, and we're going to make sure you feel comfortable and safe around the families and kids that we're serving. And then another question was
the age range of the children.
Age range of the kids. So variety, 0 to 21. A lot of times we do see 0 to 5 quite a bit, more frequently, and recently here in Josephine County, 0 to 5 is pretty big. It's funny because it's not funny, but it's different opposite. So we get a lot of babies here in Josephine County and not a lot of teens. And, the CASAs here always want to work with teens, but they don't really want to work with babies. But it's a complete opposite in Jackson County. They get teens and nobody wants to work with teens, but they want to work with babies. So, anyway, so we get a lot of, different variations of age range. I could, easily run a report for you and tell you like what the age range is, but it's a vast majority of different age groups. Hopefully answered all your questions, Jim.
Close enough. Thank you.
Val?
Yeah, great presentation. And yes, I've always kind of wondered exactly what CASA does. CASA currently, if I'm not mistaken, is in the Children's Advocacy Center. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Down on D Street. And I do know that they are going to be building a new building because size-wise, what exactly is the difference between a children's advocacy group and what you do? Is it just the legal aspect, or what is the difference?
So the Child Advocacy Center is basically, they're the ones who, excuse my phone is ringing. Let's see if I can turn it on now. There we go. There we go. Sorry about that. And so basically the Child Advocacy Center, they're the forensic interviewers for the kids who get abused and neglected. So their job is to interview these kids who are sexually or physically abused or experiencing domestic violence in the home or whatever case may be. And so they are basically the forensic interviewers, and they also have like the nurse practitioners who evaluate the kids who are abused in certain ways. And so that's their role, that's their job. And so they're basically kind of in the kid's life just for a split second to interview them and report back to law enforcement and the courts or whatever, and maybe possibly pursue criminal charges towards these kids or towards the perpetrators and things like that. Whereas CASA, we're the advocates for the kids. And so we're appointed for the kids throughout the life of their case. And so we are going to advocate for, again, whatever is in their best interest for the kids. So the Child Advocacy Center isn't necessarily always, they're not appointed to the case. They're just there to kind of, to, intervene and interview the kids on whatever they're being abused or neglected on, and again, report to law enforcement.
Okay, great. Thank you. I have one more question. And what is the average length of, say, a case? When you're talking about how long, and I know it all depends on a lot of things, and that there's probably not anything cut and dry, but I mean, approximately what would you say, if, in terms of timeliness, how long a case does run?
Yeah, great question. So what we do is when we're reaching out to volunteers and we're asking people to volunteer, we're asking for a minimum 2-year commitment. And that the reason being is because a case can last up to 2 years or more. So we have had cases that have lasted more than 2 years, unfortunately. And again, as I mentioned earlier, these parents, they have a timeline. So they have from the time that the child comes into care for 12 to 14 months to get their things back together, like go to treatment, go to counseling, whatever. And so that in that 12 to 14 month period, there's a federal guideline that says you have that timeline to be reunified. If not, we're going to look at possibly changing the plan. Well, sometimes parents kind of intermittently get involved here and there. They'll do something here, they'll do something there. They won't do something here, they won't do something there. And so by the end of that 12 or 14 months, they could always extend that timeline a little bit for the parents to continue treatment or continue whatever it is they're doing to get the kids back in their care. And so sometimes it could last up to 2 years. If a case moves, say after 12 to 14 months, if a case moves into adoption, and that's okay for the kid, but then the adoption is not really finalized. It could take another year for it to be finalized. So that's why we're always asking for a 2-year commitment. So on average, I mean, I would say 2 to 5 years a case can last on average.
Okay, thank you.
Monty, question.
That was a great presentation. I know we've been talking back and forth. So as you kind of, on the screen, there was a shared CASA situation perhaps where it could be you and your husband or you and somebody else. Can you expand on that a little bit?
Sure. So it can be anybody that you're familiar with. Or it can be somebody you're not familiar with. We've had people in training actually meet in training and said, hey, do you want to co-CASA together? And so co-CASA is a great, thing that you can do, is because there's 2 of you assigned to the case. And so let's just say, Bonnie, for example, you and I have been talking, you like to travel, you go out and you're traveling, but your co-partner stays here. Right. And so if you have a partner who stays here, a friend or whoever it is that's here, you're both legally appointed to the case and you can still talk about it while you're away or whatever. So you're both legally appointed to the case. And one of you can go to hearings, one of you can go to meetings, one of you can write the report, just so many different things that you can do together. But you're both legally appointed to the case by the judge. And so it gives, a great opportunity for you guys, whoever you're appointed with, to do whatever it is that you need to do. So say, like I said, you like to travel, and if you have a friend or somebody who stays here local, and is interested in CASA, and they can go do the home visit, once a month, or, and you can go jump in on with them every other month or every 3 months on that home visit together with them. So hopefully that answers your question.
It does.
Yeah, so we have that quite often. We do have some spouses who are CASAs. We have some CASAs, again, like one who likes to travel, one who stays here. And they just kind of take turns. And then when that person who's traveling comes back.
I did have to scurry upstairs in the middle of the night about.
Sorry about that.
So you can both be, like I said, appointed and then just share, duties together.
Okay. Thank you.
Does anybody else have any questions? See if I can see any waving hands. All right, I'm not seeing or hearing anything. Thank you so much, Dan. That was a great presentation and really helpful to understand a little bit better how the CASA program works and what your needs are as a community. So if any of you have friends or family members, or if you're interested yourself, if you think this is something you might be able to make time for, please get in touch with Dan. Like you said, his information is in the chat box. Share it with people. And I believe that CASA has been one of our the programs we support with our Porch Fest funds. So it's a program that's near and dear to this club's heart. We're happy to do what we can to promote and support the program. So
yeah, I wanted to mention that also, Gina. We just got that on, I believe, Tuesday. So thank you all so much. We're sending a thank you letter to you, of course. We really appreciate that. Those funds, again, help us, get advocacy for these kids. And it's just so great and sincere to, see that, donation. And we appreciate it from our hearts. Thank you so much.
you're welcome. And again, welcome to the club.
Thank you.
All right, Sergeant at Arms, Kelly Moody.
Yes. So Dan, that wonderful program, and it's so much about what we're about. This is membership month, August, and Gina wrote in her newsletter to everybody. I'm going to quote her. Think of the joy that comes when you add new members to your families, whether it's through the birth of a new grandbaby, a marriage, or even hosting an exchange student. Now imagine if you could continue growing our Road Gateway Rotary family. How much more joy, how much more energy, more passion, more service we would have to share with our community. And here we go. CASA is another piece of that community. I love it that the idea of family includes not only those in our own families, but also friends, community, Rotary. We have all of these opportunities, CASA being one. I'm going to give you a couple of reminders. How about Meal Train? I noticed that there are still some openings for Meal Train that are in this next week. So again, on our Navigator link, you'll see how to plug into that. Another one is you can donate with your person or with your money or both at one or more of Chris and Brenda's Table Rock Foundation camps. All the information you need is in our Navigator. And you could consider giving of your time, but if you don't have the time, dollars are always wonderful. So what could be more important than helping children? And that's what Table Rock Foundation is about. That's what CASA is all about. That's kind of what we're about too. But not just that, shelter box. Boy, that really shocked me. I know that we're experiencing drought everywhere, but I did not realize the Horn of Africa was in such dire straits. More than 20 million people have been affected. And so shelter box, if that's in your heart, check it out in the Navigator. I'm only mentioning several ways, a few of those several ways that we could help our community, but now let's get to Happy Bucks. And for I have 10 because my husband's and my youngest daughter, Leah, is coming next week to visit. And then she and I are heading up to Portland to visit the middle daughter and celebrate her birthday and have a wonderful time. So I'm happy. What about you? Who else has happy bucks? Maybe comfort bucks? Maybe sad bucks? I see your hands. Let's start with Gina.
Hi, I have 10 happy bucks because it's nice to see new faces like Dan and Judy. And it's also wonderful to see faces we haven't seen in a while, like Bayla. It's great. I just love coming to Rotary every week and seeing everyone. And we've got a wonderful club, and it's great to see how we keep expanding and introducing more wonderful people into our group.
Absolutely. I have a smile on my face. How about Bonnie?
I have 10 happy bucks because we had our grandkids here in Georgia for 10 happy days.
Oh,
And
nice.
they had a grand time at the lake, and their parents, came and took them off yesterday, which was also sad and happy. Now we're both just really tired.
Yeah, it's a happy tired though.
Happy tired, yeah.
That's right. Val.
Unfortunately, mine are sad bucks because my grandchildren were supposed to come today, and my middle grandchild came down with a positive COVID test yesterday.
Oh.
She had gone to a church camp, and everybody in the group had come home with COVID, and she didn't. And so she was so proud of herself, and my daughter was so proud that she'd gotten her vaccinated. And then on the 5th day, she came up positive. So sad. We were just that close to her coming down here, but she's being a good grandchild and a good daughter and not giving it to grandparents. So I do appreciate her doing that, but I'm somewhat sad that they're not getting the chance and probably won't have a chance to come down and play in grandma's pool this summer. So sad. Anyway,
Yeah.
I'm sure I'll go up there soon, but it was just kind of.
Yeah, I know how it feels. And, but it is nice that you don't have to get exposed. So there is that piece, and I'm sure Dawn is shaking her head somewhere. Yes, okay, do we have anybody else with some sad, happy, comfort, some bucks to give? Dawn. I think you're muted.
I'll add to the COVID sadness, Valerie. 10 sad bucks. For me, my granddaughter was coming down here. She's getting ready to leave to go to school in Prague for a year.
Wow.
And it was going to be time that we could be together. And then here I am. I'm sort of like typhoid Dawn. So don't get to give her hugs before she leaves. And it is kind of sad, but that's what it is. It's a mystery these days.
Yeah, it kind of is. But I have been reading a lot about the drug that you and Steve took and how it does cause it to rebound. And they don't exactly know why. So I think, word of caution, we might want to not take that extra step in the future. Anybody else with some happy bucks? It's wonderful seeing everyone, and those of you that are going to help Jody out at the fair, yay for that. I wish I could be one of them. I just happen to have that, I hate to call it this, but I have that albino skin that goes with the red hair, and I can't be in the sun ever because it doesn't like me. Cindy.
Hear me. I don't know if this is a sad or happy buck, but on the 13th of August, I will have been a type 1 diabetic for 40 years.
Oh my goodness.
And I'm very grateful that I've had a good health team. I lost my sister at 37 from advanced diabetes complications. My daughter recently had a partial amputation of her foot due to diabetes. So I'm actually really happy because I'm independent, I work, we've got good health care. So there you go.
It's really true. You're kind of a rock star, Cindy. You manage it really well. And yeah, we're all grateful that you are this rock star. Margaret.
Hi, everyone. I have 5 happy bucks because last Sunday I got up a little bit late and Greg was up making waffles. This is our Sunday tradition. And I was opening the windows in the garden room and there was a man in my garden peering into the house. And I got a little bit nervous and then I looked closer and it was Paul Stoy, our former exchange student from Germany, and he paid us a surprise visit. He and his girlfriend were traveling from Seattle down to LA and they stopped and peered through our window. So we invited him in for waffles and had a great visit with him.
Oh, that's a wonderful story. Oh, I don't know. I never knew there was such a thing as good stalking, but that kind of is.
Yes, it was great. It was great. Thanks.
Yeah. Oh, and Margaret, just as an aside here, I love looking at your picture every week that you have posted here on Rotary. You have such a beautiful smile.
Oh, thanks. This way I can eat without you guys seeing me chewing.
Tommy. I think you're muted.
Yeah. What about Greg? But anyway, I have 10 happy bucks because Yetta was here and we got to spend some time with her. She's our former exchange student from Germany and had to go home a bit early. And it was just so great to see her. She's a wonderful young woman. So that's a plug for both her and Youth Exchange. So there you go.
Yes. And it wasn't just Yetta we got to celebrate. It was also Eki, her father. I think I said that correctly.
Eki, yeah.
Yeah. And oh my goodness, it was wonderful to see both of them. And
it was.
Yeah, we really did get to celebrate. That was a wonderful time. I don't see any other hands.
Greg.
Yep,
Oh,
Greg's got
Greg, I'm sorry. You know what? Your hand blends into the curtains.
Yeah, the curtains are too much sun. But I have 10 happy bucks and it's not for the Field of Dreams game tonight.
Oh boy.
Which airs on Fox TV. And if they play, I got to watch a documentary about the making of the movie Field of Dreams and things. That was a lot of fun last weekend. So if they're playing that on the pregame show, I would recommend it if you're interested in baseball at all, or in Kevin Costner or any of the movies that he makes, like Field of Dreams. But my 10 happy bucks is for a little mini family reunion that we're going to have this weekend when we go up to the COVID delayed commencement ceremony for my younger daughter, Julia.
Oh, nice.
Who earned her master's in social work 2 years ago from Pacific University and is working in Hawaii and is coming home to go to the commencement ceremony this weekend. So some of the family are able to join us all there, and that's going to be fun. It looks like it's a go. So we're looking forward to that.
Oh, that's wonderful, Greg. Oh my goodness, and well-deserved. Hey, I have a question for you, Greg. So
Okay.
Field of Dreams, which we all remember, did it really happen in an Iowa cornfield?
The book was based in Iowa. I mean, was written about Iowa. And if I remember correctly from that documentary I just saw, the author, Ray Kinsella, who is the name of the character that gets the, buys the cornfield and hears the voices to build it, and they will come, was in Iowa at the time. So he wrote it about that. There's also a story about the choosing of the actors and things, and the locating of the field, and lots of interesting little parts. And I did get to visit Field of Dreams about 3 years ago and got to play catch on the field and walk through the corn, and it was a ton of fun. And it is kind of a magical place.
It is. Well, I
In
know,
Iowa, your
I know
home
those
state, right?
Iowa cornfields. I'm from Illinois, but I went to the University of Iowa for
Okay.
undergrad work. And I'll tell you what, you'd have to have a special place in your heart for mosquitoes too. Just saying. Back to you, Gina.
All right, thank you. Okay, so a reminder that next week we have Jill Ham from KJO Radio. She's going to be talking to us about the local Granges and how they work, which I don't know about the rest of you, but I'm really interested because I don't really know anything about the Granges except that they're buildings that we sometimes have meetings in. So it'll be really interesting to find out more about that. Don't forget, if you have any time this weekend, either Friday or Saturday, to help out at the fair, get in touch with Jody and sign up for a slot that's still available. And I will leave you with the thought of the day, which is always end the day with a positive thought. No matter how hard things were, tomorrow's a fresh opportunity to make it better. Thank you, everyone, and we'll see you next week.